All right, so I am going to call this meeting to order. This is our first SU board meeting since we had our budget votes, so we're going to do some board reorganization. So before we do that, we're happy to welcome a couple of new members to our Supervisory Union board. So we'll start with some introductions. I'm Lynn Coda, I'm the superintendent for Franklin Northeast. Turn it to you.
Gabrielle Atwood. I'm on the Enosburg-Richford Supervisory Board.
Hi, I'm Michelle Tverge. I am the Director of Student Services.
I'm Melissa Wood, the Early Ed Director.
Heather Moore, the Director of After School and Summer Programs.
Sarah Como, board member on the NM, I have to look at the name because I just started that too, NMV board, and I'm from Berkshire.
I'm Gabrielle Lumbra, the Director of Instruction and Learning for Franklin Northeast.
Morgan Daybell, CFO for Franklin Northeast.
Vern Boomhover, Director of Facilities.
Dawn Reed, Director of Food Services.
Dominic DeRoja, Director of Technology.
And I'm Jamie McAllister, Director of Human Resources.
Mary Niles. I live in Montgomery and I'm on the NMB board.
And two humans online.
Online, Michelle, can you introduce yourself?
I'm Michelle Irish, I'm the Director for Education Quality for the Northeast.
And Sarah.
I'm Sarah Hurtubise and I serve on the ER board. I live in Richford.
Great, thank you. So I think I just want to thank our two new board members. You're new to your district boards and you both were willing to take on the SU board seats. So we're very appreciative that you're here and that you've joined us on this board. So we do lots of fun things here at this board and I hope you will enjoy your time on it. So I'm going to start off in our board reorganization. I am looking for nominations for board chair. Are there any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Mary Niles, please.
Okay. So Mary Niles has been nominated. Are there any other nominations? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor of electing Mary Niles as board chair for the SU board. We'll do this by roll. Sarah?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Gabe?
Aye.
Mary?
Hi, thank you.
Did I miss any?
Nope.
I am really happy to turn this meeting over to you so that you could do the rest of the board reorganization.
Okay.
Congratulations, Mary.
Thank you so much. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. So moving on, next up is our vice chair position. Mort, I've been serving in that capacity for the last couple years and I know he's no longer on either board now. So I would be looking for interest or a nomination. Sarah, I know you said you would be willing to fill that role, but that potentially Akua might be interested, but I didn't realize she wasn't going to be here tonight. Although in the past, we have elected people to positions when they aren't here to say one way or the other. It has been done. There's precedence for it. What do you
How do we?
Has anyone talked to Akua?
That was not on my radar.
Sarah, how are you feeling about
I'm okay with it. I mean, Akua's not there. It really wouldn't be fair. She's not there.
Right.
Okay. So, yeah.
Okay. So then I'll nominate Sarah Hurtubise. We'll do that by roll. Gabe?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
And Sarah?
Aye.
And Mary is an aye. So in our clerk position that has been Akua the last number of years, the clerk basically is the person who would fill in if the chair and vice chair aren't able to attend a meeting. I mean, really beyond that, Morgan, right? There's not much of a role there.
Correct.
And no one's spoken with Akua about her interest or not in continuing in that capacity.
I think it is safer to assume that someone's okay in continuing with something that they
so-
hold than to
okay.
like put them into a
Okay.
large role.
Unless either Sarah or Gabe might like to serve in that capacity.
Not at this time.
Okay, all right, so I'll nominate Akua, and we'll stay the course with that. We'll do that by roll, Gabe?
Aye.
Sarah? And Sarah?
Aye.
Mary's an aye. So under finance, this is basically just kind of reiterating, well, I guess we want a motion to continue our status quo with how we approve warrants electronically. When they get sent out from the central office, it's 2 signatures or 2 approvals for those warrants.
Both district boards approve that as well.
Yeah.
Organization.
So I'll make that motion to continue as we've been doing with the 2 approvals electronically. We'll do that by roll. Sarah H.
Aye.
Sarah C.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
And Mary's an aye. And then I'll just make a kind of plug for, on behalf of the central office accounting people, to just, if folks can somewhat regularly try to check that SU email and, take a glance at the warrants and approve them. Especially on Fridays, that's when the pay ones come for salaries and taxes and such, so those, but they're all pretty important to kind of keep moving forward. So the SU voting delegate for statewide health insurance, that at the moment is me. I'm happy to continue serving in that role. That's really only relevant when we go to the annual conference, for attending the P.E.G meeting.
Yeah, and that's only an every couple of year
Yeah, okay.
obligation because those agreements tend to be more than 1 year.
Right,
And they're rolling over a little bit right now too.
okay. So do we need a motion for that, or I'll just, you want a
I
motion?
think you should, yeah.
Okay, well, I don't, can I nominate myself?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Awkward. Sarah C.
Aye.
Gabe.
Aye.
Sarah H.
Aye.
Mary's an aye. Okay, our regular meeting schedule and location. So currently we meet here in the library, the high school, the third Thursday or third Wednesday of every month at 6. It seems to be working pretty well. There's obviously always a virtual option for anyone who can't come in person. Does anyone kind of foresee difficulty with this time slot and day moving forward? Okay. And it's not every month. 7?
It's August through January and then again in April.
Yeah, so it's a little less of a time commitment. Motion on that, Morgan, or just a verbal okay that?
I think it would be great if we had a motion on this one because we flip-flopped a little this year,
That
Mary.
is true, I forgot that we had done that.
Correct.
Okay,
So-
we had made some tweaks and then
Yeah.
it ended up actually being more difficult.
Correct.
Okay.
We've struggled for
Okay.
new members. We've struggled a little bit
Right,
to have a quorum
Yes.
for this board. So in the fall, we had several meetings. Actually, for a period of time, we had several meetings that we were really struggling and either had to cancel or reschedule.
Right.
And so we tried a different night, really didn't work. So I think
Yeah.
you should make a formal motion. around the
Absolutely.
schedule.
okay, so I'll make the motion for our regular meeting to be the third Wednesday at 6 o'clock in the high school library. We'll do that by roll. Sarah H.
Aye.
Sarah C.
Aye.
Gabe.
Aye.
And Mary's an aye. Board retreat dates, do you want to speak to that?
I do. We're actually going to spend a little time later in the meeting talking about our district quality standards and this work, our annual board retreat, we have struggled also to find nights that we can come together and do professional learning or professional board work together outside of the kind of board business meetings that we have. So I would love for us to think about a good month for us to want to do that. Hopefully either during the summer or early in the fall to set the stage for the work moving forward. And this will come up in the district quality standards a little later, like I said. So I don't know if you just want to give us the direction of a month that we could schedule this, and then we'll work on doing a doodle poll to try to lock people down to a time.
I think it's probably better to not have it in the summer because people are traveling and trying to just enjoy family time. Seems as though maybe, maybe fall when, I know for folks with kids in school, it kind of anchors you back.
Is there an interest in doing anything in June that might, if there's something that we do at a retreat that maybe would shape future work for us, it would be helpful to have that sooner than later. It does, we have a pretty clear plan already underway, so I'm not worried if we wait until fall. But if you want to think of it through that lens, if there's something that you'd like to correct.
Yeah, May or June could work, since it's kind of before the busier summer travel season, and we don't have regular scheduled meetings, which I think helps make it a little bit easier. I think sometimes when people have their district meeting and then their SU meeting, to then try to find a third night over the course of a month can be kind of challenging. So could aim for something in May or
June.
May or June.
Michelle, what do you think about that?
So maybe send out a doodle.
Sorry, I couldn't find my mute button. Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay.
Are the rest of the board members okay?
How do folks feel about that? If Courtney will send out a doodle of a couple of, maybe 5 or 6 options over the next little stretch and see how many people we could get for that. And Lynn, are you thinking just SU or district boards as well?
I would love some guidance on that because I think it gets really confusing.
Yeah.
When we've done that in the past, so maybe it would make sense to stick with SU for now, and then because what we end up getting are people that are wanting to help with some of the. It depends on what we're going to work on, I guess.
Right.
Because it really, if it's visioning for the SU, we really need to have that be directed by members of the SU.
True, and they're different lanes.
Correct.
Okay, so I think that then if we want at the district level for the respective boards to have something comparable that's more relevant for the work at the district level, we could look at that.
About that.
I also think we can take the work from the retreat and bring it back to the district boards to share
Absolutely.
as what we were doing. So we can have that two-way communication that way.
That's great. Okay. Sounds like a good plan. Okay. Location of posting our meeting agendas. Courtney's not here, right?
She has a daughter with a birthday today,
Aw,
so
nice.
do not
Okay.
make Courtney work on children's birthdays.
No, absolutely not. That makes perfect sense. So do you want to remind me where we're currently
So I think
posting
it
our-
is on websites, at town clerk's offices. There are a couple of libraries that receive them.
We send them out to all the same locations we send them
Yeah.
local meetings.
I think we've got that well covered, eh? And that's the feeling.
I think neither district board brought up any concerns about posting locations.
Okay, great. So Robert's Rules of Order, we use Robert's Rules for small boards, both at the SU level and at the district level. One of the main differences is the chair is able to vote and a second is not needed on motions, and it generally is more conducive to kind of when we have such small numbers. For instance, tonight we wouldn't even have a quorum on a vote if the chair couldn't vote. So that's essentially why we use the small boards rules. Do we need a motion on that to continue?
Sure.
Any discussion or questions about Robert's rules for small boards? Okay, so I'll make a motion to continue with Robert's rules for small boards as we've been doing. We'll do that by roll. Sarah H.
Aye.
Sarah C.
Aye.
Good.
Aye.
And Mary's an aye. Do you want to speak to those, Lynn?
So we just reorganized in March, both of the district boards, and we reviewed the code of ethics. We reviewed the member conflict of interest. Is there anyone who feels that we should go back over either of those? Either the code or policy? People feeling pretty solid with those? Okay. Mary, do you want me to talk about the next
Yes.
couple? So we have not officially established that we have a one media platform that we use for official communications. We do publish, but we've never identified one specific newspaper for that. Morgan, is it 7 days in the Messenger?
7 days is where we tend to put bid notices out, and that's really the one thing that we still use print media for. We can use the Messenger as well, and we've used both of them in the past. I think probably for the second budget votes, we had those out.
We've also used the Messenger for annual notices that we have to publish in statute. So we would like to not have to have one specific newspaper.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's totally fine.
In terms of, lost my spot, board communications spokesperson, do you want to speak to that? Do you want me to?
You can.
So we have, typically I work with the media if anything happens. I work very closely with Mary if it's anything that is big. There have been a few times where things have happened where members of the media have tried to reach out to board members and tried to get board members to comment. We encourage board members not to do that because you can't speak for the board when you're not with the board, if you haven't established a direction on behalf of the board. So if there were a need for a board comment, it would be something that we would, if the board had to take a position on something, then Mary would call people together to do that, or if it was a process question, it would go through Mary. So we just encourage people to be careful of that. And it has really only been when something big has hit the media and they're just really digging for a comment from anyone. So we like to just review that at these meetings. Policies that are in there, the public comment and the handling complaints, we also went through at the local district board. If people are comfortable, I think we could zoom right past those.
Yeah.
And then I have not established anything yet for new board members, but I will add that to my list to make sure that we don't forget to pull in some orientation training for new board members. And then in terms of advocacy, have you both started receiving information from the Vermont School Boards Association?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I signed up for a couple. In May, they have a couple trainings.
Great,
Oh, nice.
great. So VSBA is very helpful for board members. They're a very active organization. They're really good about getting information out to members about what's happening during the legislative session. They're good about getting information that's happening at the national level as well. They offer webinars. They do things synchronously, asynchronously. They do things in person. Every fall, there's a Superintendent School Boards Association conference, so you're always welcome to sign up for those. Board members have access to some money set aside in the budget for board professional learning. So if you have any interest in those things that come up, you would just reach out to, you could call Doreen Clark, who answers the phone when you call central office. She can help you get registered for any of those professional learning opportunities that you have. And I do encourage you to stay connected with the SBA and follow along as things come up, because sometimes they're big and sometimes they'll end up in our board meetings, and it's good for you to have some of that knowledge already in advance.
And I would say, especially right now with so much happening in Montpelier, their weekly kind of updates and newsletters are helpful. They'll often link to, you know, documentation from Montpelier and legislators and, you know, and just kind of help put everything into context. I mean, Lynn does a good job during the meetings, but a lot happens in between the meetings, especially right now with the legislation that we're, you know, working with. So that's everything, eh?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so then that brings us to our consent agenda. We have our prior minutes from the January 20th regular meeting. There are a number of policies, a first, second read, a couple of informational ones. Any discussion or questions about the consent agenda? So I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda. We'll do that by roll. Sarah H.
Aye.
Sarah C.
Aye.
Gabe.
Aye.
And Mary is an aye. And then we are not prioritizing.
Don't think we need to change anything.
Okay, great. And no visitors here and no one more it's just what I see on the screen, eh?
Exactly.
Okay, so then that brings us to our spotlight with Fern.
I'm working on it.
Okay, so we're touching on a couple of changes we've made. One of the biggest ones we're doing, what's the first one, is it the board hours?
We are going to flooring.
Okay, so flooring. So one of our biggest challenges is having enough people to maintain these schools. And so one of the things we've really taken a hard look at is floor care and getting a better product. So typically all the schools have been VCT tile. And if you have ever stripped the floor or waxed the floor, they're dangerous as all get out. And they take up a huge amount of time. So one of the things we're looking at is we have a pretty small crew to keep these schools running and clean. So VCT is very, very time consuming and difficult to have the staff to devote that much time to the floor. So one of the things we've done is brought these epoxy floors in, and we've kind of used Richford High School and Enosburg Elementary as a project, kind of a project to see how it goes, but it's going really, really well. So one of the biggest reasons is obviously the safety. So stripping, like, as I said, the stripping material, when it's applied to the floor, it's a really slippery. We've had staff fall and get hurt. We had one guy that spent a week in the hospital because of it. So that's a great thing that we don't have to look at anymore. Yearly wax and stripper is super, super expensive. The epoxy, there's really no care to it except running the machine over it, and it's clean. So epoxy floor, again, time saving, more time to devote to other priorities in the school. Labor is much less labor intensive and involved in maintaining it. The floors have a 15-year or more longevity rate. 48 to 72 hours to release the application odors. So there is an odor when we put it down, but it's gone after that amount of time. The company we use, Garage Outfitters, was just purchased by Overhead Doors, and Overhead Doors has done a lot of research on the off-gassing of it, because we know those questions are going to come up, and this is what they came up with as far as the off-gassing, and we have had no issues with it at all. And when we do install it, we do it during the summer, or we do it in a time period that's done before we open our doors to the students and staff. Again, slip and falls are one of the best are one of our biggest concerns. And this product, one of the issues when we did this is VCT floors are very, very slippery when it's wet, snow. And this epoxy has an aggregate in it that grips better, way better than the VCT floor. And we haven't, to my knowledge, in all the schools we have it, we have not had any issues. Again, it's a seamless product, so bacteria, dirt, it's a lot easier to maintain. We're really concentrating on putting it in the classrooms, the hallways, and certainly the bathrooms, because it's much easier to keep a clean product. And you can look at the bottom right classroom. It's beautiful, and the maintenance on it is just so much easier. We literally had carpet in these schools, and I'm anti-carpet because you can't tell if what's in that carpet, if it's clean or not. You can tell if these floors are clean. So that's basically what we're kind of going towards, and people are liking it. So we just did Cole Hollow Career Center over April break, and it looks really, really nice. And when you walk in the door, it just looks a lot more inviting. Second one, again, we were able to get another grant for another wood boiler up at Berkshire. Down here on the right, those were the old boilers, old oil boilers that we had, and they were just worn out. We had to do a lot of work on them the last year to just keep them going. So the state of Vermont gave us a $200,000 grant, and Efficiency Vermont was able to give us $36,000. So the total price on that project was $379. So we offset that. We removed a 4,000 gallon. I meant to get that picture in there, and I didn't. We took a big old missile out of the ground up there, a 4,000 gallon oil tank. So I was super happy to get that out of the ground and off the premises. The benefits of pellets, I feel, versus oil. With the exception of kitchen equipment, we are pretty much off. We're green up there. We have the kitchen. We have a few items up there, a few pieces of equipment that are still propane. But overall, we're heating our hot water with pellets, and we're pretty well all green up there. Low carbon footprint. First year savings this year. I was able to pull the data for this one. We saved $8,200 for the first year with the replacement of those boilers, so that was exciting. And we had a heck of a cold. I mean, we definitely stretched. We stretched its legs this year to make sure everything went well, and it was very, very good. The company we deal with, Lime Energy, this is the second one they've done for us, and their work is spot on. They're a full service company. They have their own electricians, their own plumbers, and a support system that is incredible. They know about a problem before I do, usually at the schools, so that's a great thing. Of course, pellets are a renewable energy source made basically from forestry waste, the wood that they are gonna not use, so that's a pretty neat little aspect. A little use of fossil fuels. Installation of, on the bottom right, those are all the new Grundfos pumps that they're a VFD, which is a variable speed, so basically when the water needs to get there, they ramp up, but as the school warms, they ramp down, and it's a huge, huge energy savings for the school. Cost savings, wood pellets are usually a lot less than heating oil. Pellets prices are less volatile than the oil, as we can see right now with what's going on in the world. So that's pretty important. Reduce carbon footprint. Run 1 ton of pellets basically replaces 88 gallons of number 2 oil. And the pellets have a high burn efficiency rating of over 90% combustion, which is pretty good if you're in the heating system. And obviously it delivers a lot less emissions than oil. So these are some of the projects that we're going to. We're taking a look at simplifying the process. We don't have the bodies anymore to maintain some of this stuff. So, we've researched it, and I feel that we're going in the right direction.
Yeah, well, I have to tee up another slide for Vern. I would just echo what he's saying about the savings, and that 8,200 was a year when we burned a lot of wood pellets. And it was a year when we weren't necessarily predicting that oil was going to be up $100 a barrel. I'll let you-
Vern, do you foresee over time trying to get all of the schools off of fossil fuels and on pellets as the boilers kind of need to be replaced because of age?
Yeah, we've got some schools that it really doesn't, I mean, some of the more rural schools, yes, I mean, I could see a Bakersfield or some, but like Sheldon, we have natural gas because of the
Right,
the
because
plant.
of the
Here we
pipeline,
have
yeah.
because of the cheese, so probably not, doesn't make as much sense for those, but some of the smaller rural schools, I think it makes a lot of sense to
Yeah.
go that route, for sure.
Yeah.
So we're going to show you briefly the 5-year, it's actually a 20-year facilities plan that we have. And this is going to be a bit of a lead into a discussion that Blaine is going to have later on in the meeting around district quality standards and what we're required to do. So the data on this is all Vern, and my job is only to sort of pretty it up. But we've got, for every school, we are looking at different assets in the building and going out, we have Vern has for the first 5 years, but it's something that we can go out for another 2 decades. And really go through and look and say, okay, in Bakersfield, we're anticipating that we're gonna need a hot water heater 3 years from now. As we actually make some of these upgrades, we can then say, okay, 29, when we replace that hot water heater, Vern will say that should last us 15 years. So we'll go 15 years out and say, okay, we know we're gonna need to replace it then. And so we've done this for every school, and then we can kind of slice it and dice it different ways. So we can look at each of the buildings and say, okay, when we start building for FY28, if Vern gets to fix everything that's on his list, we're gonna need to plan on this much money for these different schools. So we don't need to go into detail of it, but it is there, and each year obviously we're gonna be updating it and getting a little better at the predicting and what we have in terms of capacity for local contractors and capacity for budget.
We've crossed a lot of the big ones off, but looking out now, you can't step away from a school for 3 or 4 years and then expect to. So I mean, we have, because there are some schools that are in better shape. We're trying to concentrate on some of the ones that need a little bit more. But I think I was pretty happy with how the plan came out, and I think so. What Morgan and I have been doing is like for this year, basically doing a 1, 2, 3 prioritization. What's most important, what's going to have the most impact on the schools, the staff, and everything. So I think we got a pretty good starting point.
I'm gonna give you kudos. Don't let it go to your head.
No.
So we, for those of you joining us new, we never had a facilities director before Vern, and so principals were tasked with figuring out what's the most important thing that we do for the facility part of the school, and they would work with Morgan, and they were chipping away at things, but we also were finding that we were getting into situations. In one of our schools, like I was a principal, I'll use myself as an example. I was in charge of a water system. The pictures of the boilers give me nightmares because we were trying to keep those boilers running when I was a principal there 10 years ago. So principals had a lot of responsibility for facilities, and they did the best they could, but they were trained to be education leaders. They were not trained to be really good at being able to know how to replace a boiler and what kind of boiler and who should do it and all those pieces. So in the shift to Vern, I will say in those first years when Vern arrived, he spent a lot of time dealing with like what are the urgent priorities in each of these buildings, and he did an excellent job of like, okay, we really need to find some money to replace this roof, or we really need to find some money to replace this furnace. And sometimes it was, broken coolers in the kitchen and things like that were like urgent. You had to do it. What I'm impressed with is that now that we're in a place where we've addressed the things that are most glaringly urgent, is that Vern has taken the time to do the state requests that we have a 5-year strategic plan for facilities, and he's done a really good job of, he's well positioned to know where those buildings are, and the order that things need to happen. So kudos to you, Vern, for one, taking care of the fires that existed before you arrived, and for being really thoughtful about, what is it that we need to contend with over the course of the next 5 or so years. So thank you. Is there anything else you wanted to share about, Vern?
I think we're good. Yeah, I'm just trying to keep our head above water like always.
Thank you, really appreciate it. Okay, Morgan.
So I have a fairly light agenda for you this month. There's one action item, involves 2 motions. And for folks new to the board, prior to unification, so going back 7 years ago now, when schools needed a copier, they tended to just go out on their own and get them. There wasn't really a good formal bid process, and we had a lot of copier salesmen like sharks circling all of the schools, and no real ability to look at that fleet as a whole. So after we went through the unification, we joined up with a group that basically reaches out to municipalities and schools, kind of copies that or pulls all that business together, and then goes and bids that out with all the copier companies. And so folks who are returning from the board in October know that we had mentioned that we were going to go out to bid this spring. The bids have come back. There were 5 qualified bids, so there were 5 bidders that said, yeah, we can service this area of Vermont because it's really a New England wide consortium. Of the 5, SimQuest, who currently has the contract, was the lowest bid by a pretty significant amount. The backstory with them is that when we were in that fractured place, they were really the only company that we could get reliable service from, this far away from Burlington or the bigger areas. So we were pleased that they were the lowest bidder. 5 years ago when we bid this out, I think they were second lowest, and we still decided to go with them because of that service. This agreement officially begins on July 1. We've negotiated with them that we will get the new machines in over April break at no additional cost to the schools, so we're getting a little bit of a bump up on newer equipment. And so with that, there are 2 motions that are written in the agenda under my report that we would like to get on the books.
And Morgan, just to clarify, the motion with MST Government Leasing, is that different than SimQuest?
Correct. So MST Government Leasing is the entity that goes out to all these copier companies and gets the bids. They actually do the work for the lease paperwork, and so the billing and the lease goes through them, and then they do the contracting with SimQuest and the others.
And the interest rate is essentially the rental on all of the equipment. And this is across all of the schools in the SU. This figure covers all
Everyone.
schools
Yep.
and central office.
Yep.
And
So-
Cold Hollow.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Any discussion, questions from the board on that? Can we roll those into one motion, or you want them 2
Let's
separate?
do them in 2.
Okay, so I'll make the motion, motion 1, to move that the board approve the proposed tax exempt lease with MST Government Leasing. Do you want me to read the entire motion, Morgan?
Probably should, since it's recorded.
Okay.
Sorry.
For the purposes of refinancing and funding photocopy equipment leases, including consultant fees and related costs of issuances of such leases in an amount not to exceed $236,753.26 and an interest rate of 5.09% per year through August 1, 2031. We'll do that by roll. Sarah H.
Aye.
Sarah C.
Aye.
And Kate?
Aye.
Mary is an aye. And then the second motion, which I'll make, is I hereby move that the board authorizes the superintendent to execute and deliver the tax exempt lease with MST Government Leasing LLC on such terms and conditions discussed and provided to the board, and to execute and deliver any such documents required to execute the contract with Specialized Purchasing Consultants Incorporated. By roll, Sarah H.
Aye.
Sarah C.
Aye.
Gabe.
Aye.
Mary is an aye.
And unless you have any questions, that's all I have for you.
Great, thank you so much, Martin. Lynn.
Okay. So I will start off with personnel. I will bring us back to, before I jump into this, at our last meeting in January, the board approved leaning into a shift in position. So looking at our instructional coaching model and making some adjustments there in order to create space for a leadership development coordinator. And I'm very happy to report that Kelly Dean has been hired. She is a very effective principal from Richford Elementary School to help onboarding new leaders, and also creating, what we're trying to accomplish is creating a pipeline of new leaders from within our system and helping them on a pathway to leadership endorsements, and also on a pathway to having some real authentic leadership experiences within our organization. So Kelly is going to be leading that charge. She's very well connected to Upper Valley Educator Institute, and we're hoping that we can partner and offer some things through UBEI. They've been a really good partner for us on our teacher licensure work, and we're hoping we can expand that. So there's that piece. We also have Ethan Desatel shifting from Sheldon over to the alternative program. Marie Jackson, who is making a move from a classroom teacher position at Sheldon to a middle school math intervention position. Amy Swanson, most people know her as Josie. She was the Berkshire Middle School ELA teacher, who will now be working under Michelle's supervision as our emerging multilingual teacher. And then Deanna Sousa, a special educator for 26-27. The rest are informational because they're support staff, and support staff does not require approval of the board. I approve all of the support staff on my own, so I would ask that the board make a motion to approve those educator, leader, and teacher positions for 26-27.
I'll make that motion. We'll do that by roll. Sarah H.
Aye.
Sarah C.
Aye.
Gabe.
Aye.
And Mary is an aye.
Also, we have some resignations. There will be other resignations, I'm sure, coming in between now and the end of the year. There's another I need to put on there. Don't let me forget to come back to that. I
Okay.
just jumped into my mind, making a note. Resignations for now. Haley Paquette, special educator at Richford High School. Callie Goss, social emotional learning coordinator. Effective June 30th, Callie will be moving into the Richford Elementary School principal position effective July 1. We're very excited about that. Leslie Rainville, she has been the instructional coach. We thought she would be moving into an interventionist position next year. She will be leaving. Cynthia Holt, who runs our Flexible Pathways. She's been our virtual Flexible Pathways advisor for a number of years, that serves students across all of our schools in our middle school, serves a lot of students here at Enosburg High School, and it also serves students in our middle high school STEPS program. That's our alternative program that we have here in town. So we ask the board to approve those resignations, again, those positions that are not in bold or support staff.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Great, thank you so much. We'll do that by roll. Sarah H.
Aye.
Sarah C.
Aye.
Gabe.
Aye.
And Mary is an aye.
We have several open positions. We're still looking, this time of the year is a bit of a frenzy for people to learn what positions are open and try to move quickly while there are still candidates out there looking. So in FNASU, we have the following positions open. We have a speech and language pathologist position, at least one, I would say, Michelle. Multiple, potentially? Two would be great. Board certified behavior analysts, alternative program behavior technicians. Anticipated, we may have a school psychologist position. We have special educator positions. We are looking for a school nurse lead. That's something I had spoken with the board about previously. So that is currently opened. Anticipated preschool paraeducator, a literacy interventionist at Enosburg Falls Middle School, and substitutes for teacher, nurse, paraeducator, custodian, food service. We also have our SEL coordinator position that is now open with Callie's resignation, and that was on my list to ask Jamie to post today. So maybe tomorrow we will get to that piece. Did I miss any positions that anyone at the table is tuned into?
Things are changing daily.
They are changing daily. There's a lot of moving parts this time of the year. That being said, before I move on to the unpaid leave request, the thing I forgot to put on this agenda is we don't meet again until August, so I would ask that the board make a motion to give me the authority to hire and fill all the positions over the summer.
Yeah, I'll make that motion. We'll do that by roll. Sarah H. Sarah C.
Aye.
Gabe.
Aye.
Mary's an aye.
Just getting it into my busy sheet. We have one unpaid leave request from an SU staff member, Kendra Pillsbury, who works at Bakersfield. She's a special educator. She had a baby at the beginning of the year, her first child, so she was out and used all of her leave. So having a full half of the year when she returned with no leave, the request is that she would like the board to approve 5 unpaid leave days for her use. So we don't encourage people to go above and beyond when they don't have leave, but in this circumstance with a new baby, it makes sense to make sure she has what she needs.
Any discussion about that unpaid leave request? Okay, I'll make a motion to accept Kendra Pillsbury's unpaid leave request. We'll do that by roll. Sarah H. Sarah C.
Aye.
Gabe.
Aye.
And Mary's an aye.
Okay, so I am going to jump into legislative update, and I'm going to ask board members to give me some feedback at the end of the meeting. I apologize to Sarah and Gabe who heard this last night. I'm very sorry. We'll try to be concise. So there's a lot going on in the legislative session. That's kind of a really big understatement. They're looking at completely transforming our education system, and what I've done, and this is what I want feedback on, is when I present about this, I know sometimes I can get lengthy in trying to help to synthesize the information and break it down so that people can understand it. So what I've done this month instead is I've used an AI tool to synthesize information and to create visuals. It took me about 30 tries to get this the way I wanted it, but to take what's happening right now in H955 and synthesize it down into something that's a little more understandable. So Morgan, if you could hover near the top and just double click so that we could zoom that in a little, I think it will bring it closer for you. If not, you all have access to the slideshow. I sent it to you in your email, board members do. Directors, I apologize, I should have. If you can't zoom it, it's okay.
Can't access it.
You cannot access it. I will
No, it
work
doesn't
on
want
that.
us to.
We'll make sure that you get that by
Okay.
tomorrow. Usually Courtney's the one that sends it, and I must have missed a step in how I send from Canva. Dominic, do you think that they need access to Canva before they can open it that way? I maybe should have downloaded as a PDF.
Oh, yeah.
Is it Canva or Notebook LM? Canva.
This is in Canva. The slideshow is in Canva. I'll get it to you in a different format, in a PDF.
Okay.
So Morgan's figured out how to zoom in. So what they're considering right now is shifting to something called a CISA. So this is something in other states that's considered a BOCES, so it's a Collaborative Education Service Agencies. So they've taken the state of Vermont and they have broken it up into 7 different regions. And the idea is that we would be aligned with partners, and I'll share that in the next slide, who our partners would be, into a CISA that would be called the Champlain Valley North. There would be 7 other CISAs. The idea is that they would be able to share some services that would be kind of offered at that CISA level, and the intention would be for us to be able to operate at scale by doing it that way. So their hope is that they would save money. And at the same time, I think that there are people that are struggling to see that we have a very complex governance structure in the state of Vermont with school districts, Enosburg-Richford School District, Northern Mountain Valley School District, and supervisory unions in some districts where they're not fully merged. So this would put another organization on top of the supervisory unions or the larger districts. And they would hire executive directors for those 7 regions, and then they would be required to offer certain services. So if you could go down a little bit, Morgan. Some of the services that they would have to offer have to do with delivery of special education. So not all special ed services, but there would be conversations about things like alternative programs or high cost, low incidence disabilities. So students that may have disabilities that are rare but require really expensive programming. So maybe working with students that are deaf or blind, and those tend to be things that disabilities that districts don't have people on staff that are well equipped to do that. So CISAs would offer those high cost, low incidence. They also acknowledge business and administrative functions as something that they think could potentially operate through the CISAs. Those have to be offered, but they don't have to be purchased, because each district would choose from the menu of what the CISA is offering what they're going to purchase from the CISA. The one thing that is required that they have to offer is that each of those 7 regions has to hire a facilitator to have merger discussions. So this probably brings up PTSD for people who have gone through Act 46. I don't mean to point to you, Mary, but you sat by my side through a lot of meetings in 2017 and 18. It will be similar to an Act 46 process. The difference is it will include our system and a neighboring system, and it won't be facilitated by us. It'll be facilitated by an outside person who will be hired by the CISA to bring the communities together to see if it is feasible and if it makes sense for us to merge districts into a larger structure. So this is an alternative to the forced mergers that were expected after Act 73 passed last year. They've struggled to move anything in the legislature this year, and there's been significant opposition to forced mergers. So this is what's being proposed right now. There are some things that are in place. They're kind of gates, if you could think of it that way, that, in order for us to get to full implementation of what they're proposing in the House version right now, which originally was 2028 with Act 73. In this version, they're pushing it back 2 years to 2030. In order to get there, they would have to figure out how they're transitioning special ed funding. They would have to figure out construction aid. They would have to figure out sparsity. So that means that there are some schools in the state that may be small and not able to be at scale, but that's by geographic necessity. So they have to figure out how to define that. They have to figure out what they're doing with transportation, what they're doing with CTE, what they're doing with pre-K. And if they don't do all of those things, then these things don't happen in 2030. So the intention of this is that those CISAs would be operational in 2030, the voluntary mergers would take effect in 2030, and the foundation formula would take effect in 2030. So that's kind of the big idea around where that House bill is now. Do you want to add anything to that?
That one.
Okay, any questions on that? Okay, so on this next slide, there's a visual, and on this visual, it reflects two things. So the dashed black line reflects the CISA groupings, so Morgan's gonna just run his cursor through so you could see who our partners are in our dashed area of the state. So Franklin Northeast would be partnered with Missisquoi Valley, Maple Run, Franklin West. The Maple Run includes St. Albans, Fairfield. Franklin West includes Georgia, Fletcher, and Fairfax, and then Milton. So that whole area would be our CISA region. That's the Champlain Valley North. And then there are 6 other CISA regions that are expected to work together to get to scale in terms of purchasing. This map also shows color, and we should focus our eyes on the pink region. So this proposal is considered district something, I don't remember what the number is, district 18 or 19, I think. So this is a kind of a suggestion that they're using the map that Representative Conlon put in the House Education Committee for consideration for forced mergers. They're using this as guidance, as a starting place to have for community conversations around voluntary mergers. So they're recommending that it's Missisquoi Valley and Franklin Northeast that come together and have those voluntary merger conversations. Does that make sense? Any questions? Okay. So the Senate also has done work on what they would propose around education transformation in Vermont. The Senate has not moved their thinking out of their committee. So there's a couple of reasons for that. Like one side had to go first. The House was able to push theirs through first. It's come out of House Education. The House's version is now went to House Ways and Means. It is now in House Appropriations. I did not watch it all today. Do you know if it moved out of Appropriations?
955 is out of appropriations.
Did the full floor spend any time on it today?
Nope, it was noticed today, I think action tomorrow.
Okay, so what that means is that House version that I just described for you has probably had some tweaks in appropriations. The full floor has to consider what H955 has in it. They're gonna have a second reading tomorrow, which means that they have to have a favorable vote on H955, and then they would have to have a third reading, so 2 favorable votes before this work actually goes to the other chamber. So in the other chamber, the Education Committee, the Senate Education Committee, has been working on a different plan. They didn't move theirs, but what could happen when they get the House bill is they could take their thinking and look at the House bill, they could make modifications, or they could do what they did last year, which was strike all the language that the House proposed and slap their language on top of it, and then try to push that through the Senate. So in the Senate proposal, what we have, this is a little harder to understand the way this is written. This bill proposes maintaining supervisory union structures, essentially protecting, codifying choice, and access to the independent schools. This, any districts that is not light gray on the map would maintain their school choice and would be left in the existing structure that they have.
Good evening, excuse the interruption. It is now past 7 o'clock, so student-led conferences is now finishing up for the evening. Thank you and have a great night.
In a busy high school tonight. So in the Senate version of the map, they take Franklin Northeast in the green. And their proposal is that we would be forcibly merged with all of the islands, so from Alburgh to South Hero. This does not make a lot of sense to me. I will just say that out here publicly. We do not see students from the islands choose our schools as their school of choice. That we're not contiguous. We're quite a distance. If South Hero became a district for us, if we were to start in our district and drive from Alburgh down to South Hero, it would take some time. A visit would probably take most of a day to be able to like drive there, do your visit, and then drive back. So this doesn't make a lot of sense. I have not done any advocacy about this map because this map hasn't moved anywhere. If this map does find its way in, I will be actively advocating against the current structure because this doesn't make sense. In their original proposal, this green also included MVU. MVU provided some advocacy that they wanted to be partnered with Maple Run because Maple Run is their CTE center. And they also were very, very clear that they've been operating as a district since the Act 46 merger, and they don't want to go back to an SU structure. They talk about it being much more efficient, so they changed them to gray. What the gray on this map means, from my understanding, is that the state board will make recommendations around the gray areas. The guidance is that they will be put together in either supervisory union or supervisory district structures of not less than 2,500 students. One of the pieces that I find really scary about this work is, and this was accurate of probably 10 days ago. I don't know if they've done any tweaking to this. One of the parts that I find very scary about this is their timeline. They think that they propose that this would go live on July 1, 2027, which is about a year from now. And for anyone that went through Act 46 and then spent those 18 months working towards merger, after we got that state board plan, there's a lot of work that happens in order to bring big entities like this together. So that part's super scary in there. So we'll be watching this really, really closely. If it leaves the House, we'll be watching really closely to see what happens in the Senate.
And when do you think would be the appropriate time to let them know that this really, with Alburgh and the islands, reflects a complete lack of understanding of our kind of region and what works for our community?
If the Senate does a strike through and replaces Peter Conlon's map with this map around forced mergers, I will write a letter to that committee. If there's an opportunity through VSA is often asked to go testify. I'll be trying to be a part of that, or having our VSA director advocate that this doesn't make sense. But I will definitely engage.
Because Missisquoi already kind of like preempted.
They did
it. Mm-hmm. And do you feel like there's value in us kind of trying to preempt?
I have not, Mary, because this hasn't gone anywhere yet. Like that's not the map that's moving. The map that's moving is the other map.
Right.
So if I went in to try to preempt, in my mind, like they're not trying to move this map along, so this isn't anything yet.
Yeah.
So I think that it makes more sense to put our attention on what's the map that's moving, and then watch how it goes into the Senate, and then if it starts to move there, that's when we adjust, because it's got to grow legs first.
Right. And the map that is moving is, kind of better reflects kind of our region and our community as far as possibilities of collaboration.
Certainly better than this map.
For sure. Okay.
And just so people understand, because there's, there are different kind of mergers here. This is talking about a merger under a single SU. So you would still have Richford and Enosburg as one district here with 3 reps on the SU board. Still have NMV, these 4 towns with 3 reps on the SU board. You'd have South Hero, still its own district because they have a different structure with 3 reps. The islands, these 3 towns would get 3 reps on the SU board and maintain their own single board. Same with Alburgh.
Yeah.
So you'd have
9
And
reps.
SU with 5 districts now.
And you would have, the islands would have 9 reps, and FNESU would have 6.
Have we been given numbers of how many kids in the islands go to high school
Here?
in St. Albans and Swan? I certainly know a number of them go to.
Yeah, they do. They go, a lot of the kids in the Allberg area, I know, go to New York State. Some of those kids come over to Missisquoi, some go towards Chittenden County. I don't
Yeah.
know all of the exact numbers. I know the committees have looked at some of those numbers. The problem is a supervisory union structure that we're in is not a favorable structure that people want to lean into. So everything we do here in this district now, we do 3 times, because we have 2 districts and then we have a supervisory board. If this became our reality, we would do everything 6 times. We would have to run 6 payrolls. We would have to merge their, I don't know if they have a merged collective bargaining agreement, but we'd have to merge policy, collective bargaining agreement, all of that work. We'd have to do 6 audits. We'd have to prep for 6 board meetings every month. It's actually 7. You'd have SU on top of it.
5 plus 1, 6.
Okay, 6. So it's a lot. Those are just a few of the pieces that are duplicated. So the whole reason to have this structure is to protect choice. In my mind, there's not a lot of other reasons why people don't want to let go of a supervisory union structure. So none of the places in gray are SUs. So there's going to be strong advocacy not to partner with anyone that is an SU, unless the SUs are willing to merge into a district. So what's going to happen is it is very likely that the House and the Senate will not agree in the end, and that this will end up in a conference committee like it did last year at the end of the Act 73 work, and they'll have to try to come to compromise in that committee. One thing that I didn't say last night, and I should have, is that on top of all of this, we have a governor who's saying that he is, or maybe I did, he is not going to let them out of Montpelier until they have a forced mergers. Like he wants fewer districts that come out of this legislative session. So they are under immense pressure to come up with something. I really don't know what they're going to come up with, but that's where we're at. There's another bill that is a pretty big deal. It's called S220, and I will just say that I'm gonna talk about this, and this is something that a lot of boards across the state pay a lot of attention to, and it has to do with the excess spending threshold. And I bet that's something that not a lot of people in this room have ever even heard the term of, because it's so far from what our reality is, and if any issue, we never even talk to you about it. So an excess spending threshold is when you look at what the average statewide spending is, and right now, if you reach 118% of the average statewide spending, an excess spending penalty gets triggered, which means you're double taxed on anything that you spend above that excess spending threshold. So for those higher spending districts, they do a lot of work to not go over that 118%. We don't have to talk about this because we are in the opposite direction. We're way under what that average cost is. However, there's a bill that is currently proposing that they take that 118% and they shift it to 112% in a year. So it is mine. Morgan and I need to double check on this about which budget, whether it's the budget that was just approved or the budget that they'll be building next year. This would mean that anyone that is 112% over would double tax above the 112. This would have a pretty big impact on the people that are on the other end of that continuum of spending in 1 year. The idea of the foundation formula is that they're going to need to reduce their spending while we increase our spending to try to get us closer to the middle, but there's an incremental process to get there. And people are advocating very strongly against this because it is a very big jump. Some of those really high cost districts are high cost because they're losing students. And there are some of those districts that have been actively trying to merge. and the communities will not approve their merger processes. So this leaves them in a pretty tough spot for those communities. There are others that are high cost because of choices that they're making in their budget process. So we're watching S220 to see what's going to happen there. Any questions on that? So the yield bill is an important bill. The governor proposed in his address that he wanted to buy down property taxes by $105 million this year. Every time we do that, it's kind of a setup for us in the next year. So that means that before we build our budget, I think you said last night, you're already 10 cents higher than you are this year, because you have to make up that 105 million before you even start. So even if you have a level service budget, you have to address all of your salary increases and all of your increased costs in your budget, and you have to address increases to healthcare, so that we're talking significant increase, and the whole sets you up to fail in that next budget. So the House said we don't want to use 105 million, we want to use 52 million instead. The governor definitely does not like that. They have taken up the yield bill that passed through the House. It's in the Senate. It's in Senate Education, and in debates yesterday and today, they were talking about changing that number to 105 million to buy down that full rate. And then they were considering that S220 language passed through the Senate, and it is sitting on the wall in House Ways and Means, and House Ways and Means has not taken it up. So the Senate is considering putting the language of S220 into this yield bill, and the yield bill has to pass. So it gets harder when you start layering things on top of the things that you need to pass with other things that are pretty consequential. I think, do you want to say where they landed? You were watching today.
Yeah, so they're in Senate Finance now. They looked at about 5:15 today, like they were going to pass it out of committee, using the full buy down and putting in S220 language. I would have said either a 4-3 or a 5-2 vote. And one of the people on the 2 side basically put a stop in the process and said we need to come up with a compromise that everyone can support, so it comes out 7-0 and it has a better chance on the floor. So they put off voting on it, and they're going to take it up again tomorrow afternoon. But I think it kind of shows what a hot potato S220 has become, and it seems there's a perception that it's being held as a bargaining chip in the House in order to get people to support 955 and get that one out. And I think there are some in the Senate who are hearing that, and so are looking for another avenue to get it back on the table. There was a lot of discussion in committee about whether 105 million or 52 million is the right number. The people who are supporting 105 million, some of their legitimate arguments, I think, are one, that we're always finding money to buy down, and so it is a hole, but we also went into this year with a $70 million hole, and magically we had 100 million to fill it. And number 2, you can't really bind the hands of a future legislation. So if we say we're going to spend $52 million this year, and we're going to put $52 million in our pocket for next year, that $52 million for next year is going to become really appealing to everybody who's looking for money for other projects. And so they're worried that it's not going to get used next year. So I think they're going to try to pass something out tomorrow, and then it will eventually make its way to the Senate floor, and it's definitely going to a conference committee.
There are advocates that wish that we would stop with the buy down. Overall, we are at about 4.2% education spending increase, and people are in a much more favorable place with their property taxes than what was anticipated. So there are some that would advocate that instead of year after year us putting this much money into the property tax buy down, that we start investing in some of the capital construction aid that there's been a moratorium on that since 2004. So if we're really getting serious about considering merged regional high schools and regional middle schools. Those are also pieces of H 955. That's part of the study, is looking at that you need to start having some money in the bank, because you're going to have some construction aid to make those things happen, and they're not doing that yet. So I'll go to the next one. This is a bill that I have been watching, and this is early ed. It was in a committee. I will say that there's, I'm only going to talk about a couple of pieces here, because this really isn't going to move this year. It was punted to a study committee that's proposed in H 955, but one of the hot topics that has really been talked about this year is that we currently have an educator licensing expectation for all of our early childhood teachers that falls under the Agency of Education's licensing requirements. We have a funding, access to high quality pre-K is a right that has been quantified in law in Vermont. So students and families can take their pre-K funding and they can use it in their public school. They can use it in a neighboring public school that they're not a resident of, or they could take it to a private center. Those teachers need to be currently licensed through the Vermont AOE with an early ed endorsement in order to be able to access that universal pre-K money. They're making a change in licensing requirements. They're proposing a change that early educators in private providers would not have to have the same licensing expectations. They would be now licensed through the Office of Professional Regulation. They would still call them an early childhood educator. That is the endorsement, or pre-K, preschool teacher. What is the endorsement?
I don't know what language they've decided on.
Okay. Well, they would have different expectations for licensure, and it's confusing because it'd be two entities. The licenses would say the exact same thing, and the requirements would not be exactly the same. So that is something that we haven't been in favor of. They're doing a lot of work around these areas in the state that are considered childcare deserts right now. So they're trying to figure out how they can shift and build more pre-K programs. I think the Northeast Kingdom is definitely one that they have tuned into, and I know there are others. But we're paying attention to this. I don't know, Melissa, if there's anything you want to add in general about this. It is not moving this year, but is there anything that you want to add?
Just that they're working to professionalize the field of early education. So they're recognizing the amount of work and expertise that's required to raise humans. And so this is the field's way of trying to professionalize the field, really. And my understanding is that an AOE licensed teacher who's endorsed can go in between the two entities. So you can teach in a public school or you can teach in a child care center. However, if you are licensed through OPR, you are not considered a licensed teacher under the AOE. So I think the question is whether, yes, there might be two different licensed entities, but it's the endorsement piece that I think is tied to Act 166 funds that would make a difference, as even though I'm a licensed teacher in a child care center, I don't have my endorsement through the AOE, so I don't think we would be paying funds for children in those classrooms. It would only be if they have access to endorsed through the AOE preschool teachers.
That's different than what
That's my understanding of it.
We'll have to pay attention to this, because that has been something that's really been a worry of mine, is that we're making that licensing pathway easier. Not that I don't want to support our private providers. This is another example of, we have a pot of public education money, and there are bills that get passed that allow public education money to leave the public education system, but it's counted as public education money. And this is one of the decision points that has happened in legislature, where we're subsidizing through the public ed fund private pre-K experiences for students, the 10-hour part.
Yes, and to speak to that, so in partner sites, they have to, the classroom has to have access to an endorsed teacher. So I could be up in the business office, or their planning office or whatever, on site, but the preschooler may never see me. But I'm considered the endorsed teacher that's providing the UPK education. But children never have to see me. Whereas in our public schools, you have to have an endorsed teacher front-facing for a minimum of 10 hours a week. So even now, how it stands, there's a big discrepancy.
Yeah. There also was, there was a strong advocacy from superintendents against some components of this bill that would have required us to sign off on provisionally licensed teachers from within. It's something I've been asked to do in the past. For those of you that don't know, when teachers are not licensed yet, but they're working in the field, they go under a provisionally licensed category, and then all of those people work under my license. And so I have deep responsibility to make sure that they're performing well, because my license is on the line for these people. So I've been asked to put people in private provider programs under my license, and I've refused because they're not my employees. I don't have access, I don't have any supervisory capacity, and so they actually put something in one version of this bill that would have required me to do that. And so I am happy that it's going off into a committee. Maybe we'll see it come back next year. Any questions about any of the legislative pieces? So I know whatever passes through, we're going to have challenging conversations in our community around our current operating structures. We're going to have challenges about who are our logical partners. We're going to have the conversations around, everybody has to have a conversation around scale, and we also are going to have challenging conversations around choice. So I'm just preparing you that we're going into some tumultuous waters, I would say, that this is going to bring us back into this, and I think that we'll navigate through it. We have before, but it's the state. We have to navigate this if people want us to have different outcomes in terms of more equitable access to opportunities for Vermont students and more affordable tax rates for our residents. We've got to do something, so we'll keep you informed about this. We won't come back together until the legislative session is over, but I'll make sure that you get access to information through your boards. So the next piece I will move on to is our 26-27 school calendar. This is something that both the NMB board and the ER boards have approved. For those that are listening or in the room, this is a regional calendar. So each of the 5 superintendent regions in the state are responsible for coming up with 175 common student days, and we've done that with this calendar. We've worked hard over the last 3 years to try to align across the state, not just within our region, but to try to get closer to a statewide calendar. Act 73 requires that at some point the agency, I think it's 2028, the Agency of Education needs to have a statewide calendar that they're responsible for developing. Without a statewide calendar, it makes it very hard for some of our CTE programs that may operate in a part of the state where they could have students that are coming from 2 or 3 different superintendent regions, so they could have very different calendars. There's one of our CTE centers in the state of Vermont that has 13 sending schools, so it's complicated. So you may have students that have February break this week, and then a different subset of students that has February break this week, and then what do you do with your staff? When do they get their break? So CTE people have asked for us to work on that calendar. So for the last 2 years, superintendents across Vermont got really close to a merged statewide calendar. So all of the school vacation times are aligned. There are still differences across the state in where people have their in-service days. And I also think there's a difference in where the first day of school is. We're not fully aligned there yet, but for the most part, this is a really close calendar. So we will start, to give you some context to this calendar, August 26th will be the first day of school, and it's expected that June 14th will be the last day of school, make up any snow days that we have after that. We have embedded all of our in-service days into this calendar. And as I said, we have met all of the aligned requirements with the calendar as well. So I'd be looking for the board to make a motion to approve this calendar for 26-27.
I'll make a motion.
Great, thank you, Gabe. We'll do that by roll. Sarah H.
Aye.
Sarah C.
Aye.
Aye.
And Mary is an aye.
So I'm going to talk to you about this year for a moment. I typically come to you at this time of the year and say, we have 4 snow days or we have 5 snow days that we need to make up, and we have 176 student days in our calendar. We're required by statute to have 175. So I think every year that I've been superintendent, we've had quite a number of snow days to make up, and I've waived that 170, asked the board to waive that 176 day. We had 1 snow day this year. Knock on wood, we did one year have to cancel school on June 9th. I think it was flooding or something, but, so right now we have 1 snow day to make up. The proposed last day of school is on a Tuesday. I am not going to ask you to waive the last student day this year because I don't think it makes sense to waive back to a Monday. That would be releasing at a half day. I think we should just make up that day on the Tuesday and have our 176 student days. Any objection to that?
No, I'm just surprised that it was only 1, given that we had almost 400 inches of snow this
I know.
winter.
I know.
They all happened on the weekend.
It did. A lot of it happened on the weekend. Every time there was a weather report that came in on, and it was gonna hit on a Saturday or a Sunday, I was like, thank you. It is my least favorite thing to do in this job. I will say I had a student at Cold Hollow that challenged me to a hammer and nail competition and said, if I win, you have to give me a snow day tomorrow. And I said, I mean, I can't do that. There's no weather tomorrow, so can't do that. And then we were about 4 days from the winter break, and he said, before the break, I said, still no weather, but I'll give you a snow day at some point this year. And I got nervous because I was like, oh, I promised him a snow day. And I was starting to wonder when we were going to get one, but we did ultimately get one. So debt paid to the student. So I did forget one thing, and I want to go back just to some staffing stuff. So we had talked when we met in January about shifting to a data manager position, and we have had conversations. We looked at what it would cost us to shift to a data manager position, and we've had some shifts in our office. So Thomas, who's been the assistant tech director, is working with us very few hours each week now because he has taken on a position at Sheldon. So how many hours is he with us at Central Office now?
About 8 a week.
About 8 hours a week. So we have limited amount of additional tech support. We looked at the data manager position. We looked at what are the goals that we're trying to accomplish by having a data manager. And what we decided on ultimately is that we needed a better tool to be able to pull reports and create data sets for the work we're trying to do. So we had a team look at a platform called Aubrey, and what we found is this is someone that Morgan and I made a connection with when we were at a League of Innovative Schools convening, and we felt ultimately like by using Aubrey, we'll be able to pull down better data, and by using
Measure Ed.
Measure Ed is something we also learned about in the last several months. Measure Ed, can you describe it in a couple sentences?
Yes, they do consulting and specifically focused on SAS, help running SAS systems and state reporting. So that's the area that we're focused on with them is state reporting.
So for those of you that don't know, Dominic is, I feel like you're in a cave for most of the year under the pressure of state reporting. And this is an entity that will help with state reporting. And what we are hearing from our colleagues that have been using Measure Ed is that they're very effective with the numbers, and even if they find a couple of extra FTE for students, it'll more than pay for their services. So we decided instead to pilot without adding a person, because you pay salary and benefits when you do it that way. We're piloting Aubrey and Measure Ed, and we think we're going to get the same outcome by adding those two pieces. So I didn't tell you that, and I want to make sure you heard that from me before we move on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so I have the DQS and the EQS, the District Quality Standards and the Education Quality Standards. Back in the fall, we were asked to assess where we were in FNESU in the very new District Quality Standards. These, there was a pilot assessment in the fall where we had to look at it and then rate where we thought we were. And we were pretty hard on ourselves. If we were not exactly proficient, we said, no, we're approaching. We want to work towards getting to proficient. So this is where we landed in terms of each of the indicators that was assessed in the district quality standards. Some of the district quality standards included measures of the ed quality standards. That last year, that self-assessment that we did was considered a pilot, so none of that was released publicly. We've made it public. We've talked about this is where we are. We're going to be asked to reassess in the fall. We're working internally on several sections of the DQS to try to see what would we need to do to move the needle from approaching into that proficient realm. There are two categories, and Mary, I'm going to ask you to help me make a decision on how we want to approach this. Governance protocols, which, let me just tell you which standards those are. What numbers? Governance, it says governance priorities are standard 113. The 113 range is governance, and that is protocols, and I think there's one more, processes. All of it falls under 113. So if you look down through these indicators, you can see which of those are board functions. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the 113 range that we're in approaching, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that we're at proficient. So I have linked in the district quality standards rubric. So this is the part I would like some feedback on. Do you want to take the time tonight, I'm recognizing we're at 7:35, to go into the rubric and look at those 6 standards and decide which of those we should think about working on before we're asked to measure again as a board? Or if we're going to come together as a board to do some goal setting, do you want to look at those 6 DQS when we do a board retreat to make that determination then?
I think it makes more sense to fold it into the retreat time.
Okay.
Because there's a lot to it, and if we really want to move the needle, I think we're just going to want a little more time than we have certainly right now, but then it helps us kind of develop, we could get kind of clear on a strategy for how we're going to move the needle on it in advance of the next round of evaluation.
Sounds good. Next up is April, and the first week of May is first or second week. I did not check this year. Teacher and Staff Appreciation Week. So I'm going to ask this board, I did not put this in front of the 2 district boards, We've done the same thing across the 2 district boards in the SU for the last 6 or so years, probably. For the last probably 4 years, we have done local gift cards to educators. So we've given choices from each of our communities. So we pick a local business to get gift cards from, and we pick one from each of our towns. And then people can choose which gift card that they would like when they get the thank you for your service email and survey from Courtney. So we are happy to do that on behalf of the board again, if that's something that you are interested in doing again. I will tell you, we've heard positives from staff members who do appreciate having a choice. We've definitely heard positives from local businesses. We try not to land in the same places each time. We try to spread it around. We do struggle a little bit. Bakersfield does not have a lot of businesses, unfortunately, in their community, so we struggle a little bit there. But we do try to keep that money local, so give me some guidance on that.
I think it's worked really well the last many years. It's nice to support local businesses. It's nice to give people the opportunity to take their gift card to any of the chosen businesses. I want to shout out what a good job Courtney does pulling it all together. She's extraordinary. So I'm for it. Happy to hear other suggestions from other board members if folks have other ideas.
I think this one's great.
Especially since it seems as though the feedback is so positive from teachers and staff, and businesses.
Okay.
So and I'm happy to chat with Courtney to try to, look at the
Look at
different
historically which
yes,
ones.
and see who we've done and who
Okay.
might be nice to focus on this year round.
Okay, the last thing I have for you is a staffing update for where we currently are. So we sent out 230 contracts on April 1st. Those contracts are due back tomorrow. Close of business April 16th. To date, we have 76%, almost 78%.
Lynn,
Sorry.
so since we've been sitting here at this meeting, I've gotten 6 more.
This data was accurate as of 4:30 this afternoon when I was putting this in there. That's fantastic news. So remember that 6. That will come in handy when I tell you the rest. So we currently have 78.7% of our contracts have been returned, plus the 6 that Jamie just said. We have 7.4% of our educators have asked for an extension. So what that means is they get an automatic 2 weeks that usually is an indication that they are looking around for other positions. So those contracts will be due back May 1st. We have had, I don't remember the number, resignation 6? 2.6% of the contracts that went out, we have gotten resignations from. And we're waiting on 11.3, which is now a smaller number. We have a recruitment retention strategic plan, and our goal was that we wanted 90% retention rate. That's something that we've been pretty happy with the last few years. We've had a much better retention rate. So when we started this meeting, we needed 26 more returned to achieve that retention goal. Now we need 20 more. So I think there were 43 we were still waiting on. Does that make sense, Jamie, between the extensions and the ones that hadn't returned?
A little bit less than that, but yeah.
So we're hopeful that we'll be able to meet our 90% retention goal on that.
Awesome. That's great.
That's all I have.
All right, thanks so much, Lynn. Okay, so moving on to director reports. We'll start with Dominic.
So yeah, a few state reporting related updates. I'm trying to think of how to phrase this, but so far our guidance in the last couple months has been kind of jumping around on what our expectations are to close out the year. First, we had an April 15 deadline, and then that went away.
Expectations not from your superintendent.
Right, from the AOE.
Of the AOE, yeah.
Yeah, and it's been even further complicated by their, one of their head people for doing this kind of work on their end, just left them. But yeah, so our deadlines have been jumping around. They initially gave us an end of year deadline. That was the day before our last day of school. So some of those plans, maybe not completely the best thought out.
We maybe used an analogy that's like reporting out on the final score of a basketball game when you're still partway through the fourth quarter. So there was just data that it wasn't gonna work.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know we've got some new people that maybe not too familiar with some of this, but when we talk about SLDS is the acronym for a State Longitudinal Data System or state reporting. It's a very comprehensive set of data. Like if it was in a spreadsheet, it would literally be hundreds of thousands of rows. So it's everything, all the info that we collect and track about our students, enrollment dates, attendance every day of the year, grades, and same for all of our educators. Every licensed educator, we have to track them and their demographics and every class that they're teaching, every class that every student's taking. So it's a lot of data. So we've got those two deadlines coming up. The first one, at least the May 15th one, shouldn't be too bad. It's all data that we've already had to submit earlier in the year. So at least that part of the system should be working still. That's what the last one was delayed pretty extensively. It was originally due in August, and I think we ended up finishing in December because of problems with their system. So the July 10th for end of year, and then like Lynn already talked about that we're hiring we have hired a consultant to help with this work now. The only other update I had was E-rate, and again, probably some of you may not be familiar with that term, but E-rate is a system that from the federal government to help schools pay for internet-related expenses, and it's based on your poverty levels. So we are up there pretty high in the percentages we get back. We actually got even higher percentage this year than we have in recent years. We'll get 90% back of what we spend on internet service, and up to 85% of what we spend on certain equipment, like the wireless access points and firewalls and that kind of stuff that we need to be able to disperse the internet service throughout buildings. So overall, our application is in for next year for a total of just under $148,000 that we would get back if everything goes through 100% approved. It'll probably come down some. It gets a little complex on the hardware side of things where they'll say, well, this device is only 50% eligible or whatever. So that should come down some, but it's still looking at probably the highest year that we've had since I've been doing it, which is 20 plus years now.
Great. Thanks so much. Kath?
Just to point to one thing in the board notes that I would love for you all to take a look at some point and provide feedback. There's a form in there. So there's a link to our continuous improvement plan. It's a draft. It's not done. It's due in June, or we give it to Jen Kennison in June to sort of push that through the state. We do this every year. There are board goals that we're sort of basing our plans on, and it's basically just a plan for how are we going to reach those goals. So we look at a lot of data throughout the year. We have teams of people who are working throughout the year to kind of move those projects along, those initiatives along. And then we review the data and kind of make new plans, see what's working, what's not working. And that's what that is. So we would love board feedback if you have any. And then it'll come back to you in June in a more complete format. I mean, it looks pretty complete right now, but it will come back to you after we've completed it. We're not quite done.
So feedback from the board, you wanna wait till that iteration
No, you should
is
give us
ready?
feedback now,
Okay.
and then it'll come back and it's sort of, it will have already been submitted at that point
Gotcha.
to the state, but it will come back to you in August.
Okay, so reading through this continuous improvement plan and then using this
Form to just,
Form
any
to-
feedback, things
Okay,
you
okay.
notice are missing, or things that don't look right.
Okay, excellent. Okay, thanks, Kev. That's great. And do you have a timeline for when you'd like folks to have that back to you?
Within the next month or so.
Okay,
would be
plenty of
fine.
time.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Michelle?
Just an update on, to go with the AOE theme, the AOE theme that's happening tonight. I participated in a special ed funding committee. And it was the first meeting, and they talked about, and Morgan, you might need to help me on this, but it was a lot to do with the weighted categories related to special education. So you'd get a certain level of weight for a specific learning disability and a different weight for if you were like for students who were visually impaired, and different weight for emotionally disturbed or other health impairment. And they were asking for feedback from special ed directors, which is what this meeting was about, and I'm not sure if it's going anywhere or if there'll be further meetings. I made Morgan sit behind my screen to listen, so he could probably explain that if anyone wants to know more. Also, I'm working on refining some structures in the STEPS program, and as Lynn shared earlier, I have an in-person K-6 teacher for next year, which I'm super excited about. And so now I'm kind of working with Gab on creating some different structures for the middle high school students because our numbers are growing for this population. So want to make sure that we have some engaging things happening for kids in the STEPS program. And then I'm interviewing and have like viable applicants for special education, and I'm super excited about it. So
great. Yep. Can I just ask before we move on? Do you know what the STEPS program is, or would it help if she describes the STEP program?
Yes, that would help.
It would help. Can you just describe what STEPS implies?
Yep. So we created alternative programming for students who reached the capacity of the public school. So like Enosburg High School has maxed out their resources and there is a need for a change of placement. We have alternative programming for students. So the STEPS program is for students with challenging behaviors, and then the RISE program is for students with autism and developmental delays.
That's very helpful.
Make those
We,
assumptions.
historically, a lot of those students, we did not have alternative programs. Most schools don't have alternative programs, so if their needs exceeded what we could meet within the least restrictive environment of the classroom or in the school, they would have gone out of our community to an alternative program like Project SOAR or Laraway or Baird. And all of those, a lot of those resources were no longer available to us after COVID, or they were super limited. So we built this in-house and it has grown significantly, serving as a really positive model across the state.
Thank you. Michelle Irish.
Sure, thank you. So in my report, I talked a little bit about our English learners assessments that we do every year, and we just completed those right before the February break. We got those all taken care of. We'll be receiving the results in May, and we have I have a meeting scheduled with the outgoing EL teacher and the incoming EL teacher to kind of look at those results and do some planning for next year. So we're looking forward to that. We have had the last couple of years, we've seen some really nice growth with students, and I think our intensive approach the last couple of years, where we've had really strong EL teachers, has really paid off, and we're making some nice growth for those kids. So that's exciting. We also, I have in the report, I have our current chronic attendance data that we have been tracking this year. That is also a bill that's being picked up in the legislature. It has just crossed over into the Senate. It's at Senate Ed right now, where they're looking at a model that follows a more chronic attendance um, process, as opposed to a strict truancy model. So we're moving away from sort of attendance as a compliance issue and something that kids get sort of that their good parents and students are receiving sort of consequences for, and we're really looking at how do we support attendance as a symptom of what else is going on for kids, and how do we help support families and kids improve that attendance. And recently we have seen a renewed interest from the district attorney's office in Franklin County. Previously, they were really not interested in taking on truancy cases, and a new district attorney, deputy district attorney, has kind of taken that on. We have a new judge that's working with us, and they've been really leaning into kind of holding families accountable, but also providing support. And it's really renewed, I think, attention around attendance in schools. So on Friday this week, we have a regional meeting that's happening with a variety of service providers in our region coming together to talk about attendance improvement. So that's really exciting. I think the important thing to take away from the data I shared with you is that we had a pretty significant drop in the number of students who meet the chronic attendance threshold, which is 20% or 10% or more of the school year, which is about 18 days. We had a rate last year of 24.4, and we dropped down as an SU to 19.5 for this year. 19, I can't read that now. 19.8, I think. And that's a pretty substantial 1 year reduction in the number of students who are chronically absent. So I think we have that to celebrate. Our efforts are really starting to pay off. And we had pretty dramatic results in many of our schools who've improved the chronic attendance rates in their buildings. So I think we're going to continue the work we're doing, and we're actually starting to see more support from our county in helping us to manage those attendance needs.
Great.
That's all I have.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Heather.
Thank you. Just to piggyback off Michelle real quickly, another plug for after school. Data shows both nationally and within our own programs that youth who participate in after school programs have better school attendance. Just kind of throw that in there. In my report, I mentioned we have, I updated our LEAPS website. So now that all of our brochures are Google form-based online links, it's one-stop shopping for families with youth in multiple schools. So they can go there for both our after-school brochures and our summer brochures. Staff's working really hard on finalizing the last few summer registration forms. We hope to have everything out by the before youth go on to April vacation. One of the big changes this year for summer is we are combining the Richford Elementary program and the Berkshire Elementary program. Families have been notified. That's going to give a lot more opportunity for combined resources. One great example is the Richford Library has serviced the Richford Elementary program for years, and they'll be able to actually bring services to both communities as well. The communities have shared programming quite a bit in the past with the Notch for many, many years before we had a LEAPS program at the communities, and our the Berkshire middle school students attend summer camp at Richford already. The combined services at our middle school programs has just been bringing in a lot of fun and opportunity for that age group. We have coming up, last week we had a play at Montgomery, 2 plays actually. They did The 12th Night in the Tempest. Coming up at the end of May is our second middle high school performance for Richford and Enosburg. They're performing Clue. And in June, our Bakersfield program is performing The Sound of Music. A couple of things not in my report that I just want to share is a congratulations to our Richford Junior Senior High School group of small group of students. They created a 1-minute video about a project that they think would be really great for the Richford community to support their community as part of the Mott Foundation $1 Million Challenge. They were successful with the first round of the competition, so congratulations to them, and then it moves on to the next round. A couple weeks ago, I brought a couple of high school students that work in our after-school program and in our summer camps to the State House for a day of speaking with an afternoon of speaking with their legislators about the Agency of Education Act 78 grants that help fund our summer programs. So it was a really wonderful experience for those high school students who had never been to the State House before. They got to speak with their local representatives. They are hoping to go back for a tour. It was kind of a very wonderful, fulfilling conversation on the ride home. And then finally, just kind of a shout out of appreciation to all the coordinators and staff that work in our program. Next week is After School Professionals Appreciation Week. They get a vacation. But they work super, super hard in all that they do. And this time of year with after school programming and planning our 5-week summer camp, they're busy at work and having a lot of fun and really looking forward to summer.
You set that bar really high for teacher staff appreciation.
Well, it's always on vacation week, so we never are in person for stuff. But I guess the payout, the silver lining is they get a rest, and some of them are going where it's warmer.
Good, that's awesome.
Amazing, and the website's amazing.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just really wanted to acknowledge,
that.
I know how hard I've been working on doing the whole program, but this is really an amazing tool now to have. Yeah, bravo, that's so cool. Okay, thanks so much, Heather. Jamie.
Okay, let's see. So I know Lynn did a hiring update for the coming year. We've still had a few hires for this current school year. So we hired one teacher since the last meeting and 5 support staff. But we also had 3 teachers resign since January. And we lost 4 support staff, so it's kind of equaled out. And let's see. We still are getting FMLA requests. We've had a lot this year. We've had 41 total requests for this school year. Only 8 required licensed long-term subs. We actually were fortunate enough to hire a long-term sub who would work the entire school year. So that was good.
It was very helpful that our staff members in multiple schools lined their babies up.
Yeah.
So that it literally just worked
Right
out.
from one
Did he have
school?
4?
Yeah, he had 4, and he had one the end of the previous last year.
Yeah.
So that'll be 5 that he's done for straight together. And we've hired him for the coming year, yeah. So that worked out well. So this time of year, I've been working on educator licensing. I attached a spreadsheet if anyone looked at that. We have a lot of renewals this year. So we have 154 licenses expiring on June 30th. It's 123 individuals because some have more than one license. And we have 39 temporary licenses that are expiring. I guess 37 because 2 are currently not working at this point in the year. So that keeps me busy. And then like Lynn said, the contracts went out. So as you can see, as of last Friday, I had 142 signed contracts. So it changes, each day. But they've been coming in. Hopefully we get all the rest tomorrow. So far, I think 6 resignations isn't bad. And actually, to talk about hiring. So last year at this time, we had hired 45 people, and we only hired 32 this year for professionals. So we're down quite a bit on new hiring overall for the year, and we're down 8 in support staff, so that's a good trend. Hopefully people are staying.
Thanks so much. Dawn?
So I've been putting a lot of time into looking at a new program to run this summer. I've got a fair amount of staff that want summer hours, and the USDA has these meal boxes that we can take and assemble and provide to our community. You know, it's for kids 18 and under, and they can come to a pickup site and we will give them that box of food that will have 7 breakfasts and 7 lunches in there for those children. So we're looking at doing that this summer with 2 pickups in our community. We're looking at doing a Tuesday in Enosburg from 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. and doing one in Richford 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. on Thursdays. So it's really a tough one right now to try to look at all the pieces and parts of everything that need to come into that and what it's going to look like, not knowing what the participation is going to be in any of that. I'm kind of throwing out, I kind of threw out a number of 400 to 600 boxes a week. But as I'm kind of looking at other things and listening to peers within the state that are also doing these, I'm finding that their projections are running a lot lower than what really are happening. So now I'm kind of thinking in my mind, do I raise that and go 400 boxes at each site, which would be 800 boxes a week. I'm looking at possibly starting at the Tuesday that we actually get out of school. So there would not be any lapse time from when kids get their last school meal to what they get with these boxes, and running it right up until we go back to school. So there would be no downtime at all within that summer feeding. We still would be doing our regular sites that we do within the schools that go in line with Heather's programming, and then our other community ones that we do at various spots as well. One thing that I found that if we do jump into this and do it, I'm struggling with is having cooler space, because in every one of them boxes, we're gonna need a gallon of milk. So just the 400 gallons of milk is a lot of milk, and it's gonna take a lot of space. So I've reached out to the New England Dairy Council to try and get a grant from them. And then I reached out to Stewart's Shops to get a grant from them. I've heard back from both of those places and have secured $14,600 in grant funding to go towards a purchase of a trailer cooler that can be transported from Enosburg to Richford. And if we find that things are going really well and that we can sustain more sites, we could possibly build on that and put more sites within our district. But right now, I feel like the 2 sites is a starting point, because we can't overwhelm everything that we've got going on. So that's what
And
we're
members
looking at.
from all of our communities can go to
It-
either site.
It can be anybody. It can be someone that's just coming through the town that's on vacation that, oh, there's a meal pickup there today. We want to pick up the meals for our kids. So it's a first come, first served basis. So really to even know how many boxes you're gonna do is a shot in the dark. So that's what we're looking at doing, once we get closer and we get 100% more information into this. I'm gonna work with Courtney and try to put out some sort of something to at least the parents that we have, to see if that would be of interest, and try to get some sort of a shot in dark as to where to start with boxes.
So I just want to name that, one, Dawn has taken this on and is doing a lot of work to make this happen for our communities. This is not something that we are expecting is going to cost us money from within our local budgets. This is something that she's going to be able to generate enough revenue from doing this to be able to pay her staffing and all other expenses, so even the purchase of the refrigeration trailer, we're not intending to use any of our taxpayer money to be able to fund those, so I applaud Dawn for seeing this and wanting to bring it to our communities. I think we've had conversations about where people are financially right now, especially coming out of not only a super cold winter, but a super long winter. Like, this has been the winter that never ends, and I know people are hurting with the cost of fuel and goods and services right now. So I suspect, as does Dawn, that we'll have a high demand for these in both locations. So.
And something else that I forgot to mention is that with doing these boxes, I can bulk meals. So instead of taking and sending a ham sandwich for today or a turkey sandwich for tomorrow already made and whatnot, I can put into these boxes a loaf of bread, a pound of turkey, a head of lettuce, that type of stuff. And the way that USDA has this, they look at it and they want it so that it is product that kids can prepare themselves with minimal preparing. So I've kind of looked at it and said, okay, can you cut a watermelon with a butter knife? If you can't cut it with a butter knife, I'm not going to send it, because some of these parents aren't home to oversee the preparation part of this. And, you know, they don't want you putting in stuff that kids have to boil water on the stove or cook in the oven. They want it pretty much ready to eat or microwavable type meals. And so that's what we're looking at providing.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
That's
so
amazing.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much food insecurity in our communities at the moment, so I think it's a really wonderful service to be able to provide. And I know it's a heavy lift. You do an amazing job with the summer feeding program, you know, after a whole long year of doing the food in the schools, so thank you so much, Dawn.
It's kind of adding to the theme that I'm hearing about, like, the grants. We've heard this multiple times tonight, like Dawn going out and knowing this is a need, and within 2 weeks, I think, finding almost $15,000 to get us towards that.
Amazing.
It's great.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Melissa.
First, just an announcement that preschool registration is open. We sent flyers to pediatricians' offices, the public libraries. We put something on Front Porch Forum, so we're just really trying to get it out there. Our lists so far are looking good. Registration numbers kind of ebb and flow until we get midsummer, then they start evening out. And we're seeing more kiddos now out in some of our more rural schools. So Montgomery has increased, Bakersfield and Berkshire, while we've seen a decrease in Richford, and there's not necessarily a rhyme or reason to it, but we do keep track of that. So for children who are 3 or 4 by September 1st, they should come join us. And then since these notes, I had said that we were going to hold an event here, and we were actually in the cafeteria. So we did hold our annual young child event this past weekend. We had a really good turnout with about 20 families, and all of the activities were very child-centered, and the families just got to go around, get some snacks, let their children just enjoy being children and engaging with the teachers and their other peers, and it was just really great to see. And there was some feedback from a community member just saying, I think back from the, what was it, 6S by 6 days, where they used to have pop-up events in the communities fairly similar, where you could take your children once a month or so and engage in different activities. So our event is similar to that, and they just wish that it could happen more often. So good stuff happening. Oh, actually, I'll add one more thing. We have one of our early ed teachers shifting to a 2nd grade position, and we were actually able to fill that position with somebody who was already on our team, who has served as a para for a few years and has filled in as a long-term sub for teachers. So it was great to just have that shift so naturally.
Awesome. Great, thank you so much, Melissa. Vern, anything you want to add?
Just want to highlight, we have finally, we're going to be breaking ground on the snack shack mid-May, which will be exciting. Parity Construction will be taking that on, and start to finish, we're looking at about 6 weeks. And the only other thing I'd like to say is we are fortunate to finally have a sub-custodian that can possibly cover a vacation for some of our custodians that don't have any coverage if they're sick or, just don't have the ability to take a day off without. So that's pretty exciting, so.
Right.
We have a clean central office now.
Yes.
I was gonna say we're fully staffed, so the rotation of cleaning bathrooms internally is stopped. And we have people coming in and cleaning. So happy about that.
Okay, great, well, thank you all so much. Okay, so, moving on to board business. So superintendent evaluation is on here. We are overdue as a board to engage in that process. And it's a little hard not having the full board here to try to strategize how and when we want to move forward with that. So I'm wondering if maybe I do that, I can send out and maybe try to email everyone. And
You could, if the board retreat is something we're trying to do in the next 4 or 6 weeks,
yeah,
you could also put that there.
roll it into that.
It's really up to you.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, I feel like that's something that I'd like the whole board present to kind of weigh in on what the process is gonna be, even if, like we did the last time, we had just a small committee of a handful of us. It would be nice to have everyone say whether they wanna join in on the committee or if we wanna do it as a full board. I mean, we have a quorum, we could certainly make an executive decision around it without everyone. But I would say maybe let's punt it to when we find a date for the retreat. But it would be nice to try to work on it over the course of the summer in advance of.
Would it make sense for you to, emails make me nervous, just one thing you should know is new board members.
Oh, yeah.
We can't do any sort of reply all, we can't do business outside of a warned public
Right.
meeting, but if you were to ask who was interested in serving on a subcommittee, people
Right.
could email you individually, don't reply all
Yeah.
as a board, just that we're making sure that
Yeah.
we're following the rules, so I think that doesn't violate anything.
Yeah, so I'll do that, and I always, when I send out any communication to the board, I always remind everyone to just reply just to me rather than reply all, so we're not tending board business via email and an unwarned meeting of sorts. So I'll do that and reach out to everyone, and then we'll figure out next steps around that. Okay.
So not on board retreat?
Well, possibly.
It's
We-
part of the DQS anyway,
Right,
so it would
so
follow.
it may make sense, it just maybe it needs to be a secondary
Sure.
to the main board retreat if we're gonna go via committee.
Oh, definitely, you won't be able to do it at that, but
Yeah,
you will talk about it under the
Yeah.
DQS anyway, so.
okay, sounds good. So keep your eyes out for that email from me, and then also from Courtney to try to coordinate a board retreat in either May or June for us to tend to some of the DQS components and the superintendent evaluation. So our next regularly scheduled meeting would be August, eh?
Correct.
So we would be looking at, summer's over already. We would be looking at Wednesday the 19th. We'll be at 6 o'clock here in the library. So, and Courtney will send out agenda later in the summer for that. Any other discussion, questions from the board? Okay, so I'll make a motion then to adjourn. Sarah H.
Aye.
Sarah C.
Aye.
Vic? Aye. Mary's an aye. Thank you all so much.